In this story, we talk about betrayal feels powerful until the truth arrives. Silence, patience, and clarity always outlast arrogance.
The coffin was already descending when she leaned toward me. Black veil, familiar perfume, old poison. "Guess I made the right choice," she whispered, lips barely moving. "You're still broke." I didn't look at her. I watched the ropes tremble as my grandmother's body disappeared into the earth. My cousin stood beside her, expensive suit, gold watch catching the weak winter sun. He smiled like he owned the ground we were standing on, like he owned history. 5 years collapsed into a single breath. The last time I'd seen her up close, she'd returned my ring on a rainy sidewalk, said love wasn't enough, said stability mattered, said my cousin could give her a life I never would. I'd believed her. That was my first mistake. The priest spoke, words about peace, about legacy. I felt none of it. Inside my pocket, my phone vibrated once, a message I'd been waiting for. I didn't check it yet. Timing matters. She watched my stillness and mistook it for defeat. Her fingers brushed my sleeve. Accidental. Testing. Power always likes to check if it still has teeth. I finally turned my head. Calm face. Measured breath. "I know," I said softly. She smiled. She thought I meant the insult. I meant everything else. 5 years ago, she didn't just leave me, she rewrote me. Overnight, I became the almost man, the poor choice, the lesson learned before the upgrade. My cousin, Rohail, became the proof that she'd evolved. Family dinners turned quiet. Whispers replaced invitations. Then came the inheritance rumors, the sudden generosity from my grandmother toward Rohail, new businesses, new accounts. I noticed patterns where others saw luck, and her, always her, showing up too early, leaving too late, answering questions no one asked. I told myself I was paranoid. Love teaches you to doubt your instincts before it teaches you the truth. But 3 months ago, grandmother asked me to come alone. Her hands shook. Her voice didn't. "Promise me," she said, "you'll look after what's mine." Not who, what. The next day, she changed her will, quietly, legally, final. She died a week later. At the reading, Rohail looked surprised, genuinely. Everything liquid, everything movable, everything valuable. Mine. I didn't smile then either. I waited, because money was never the betrayal. She was. I didn't confront. I observed. I pulled phone records, old ones, traced numbers back to hotel landlines, business trips that overlapped too perfectly. I hired someone patient, someone invisible. Photos arrived in intervals. Never dramatic, just precise. Hands touching in elevators, arguments in parking lots, reconciliations behind tinted glass. I learned about the child she'd lost and never told Rohail about. I learned about the account she'd been siphoning into for security. I learned who really suggested grandmother change the will, feeding her lies about Rohail's greed. I learned Rohail wasn't the mastermind, he was the wallet, and she was running out of time. At the funeral, she thought she was inspecting ruins. She didn't know she was standing on a trap door. My phone vibrated again. Final confirmation. I inhaled, exhaled. Now. After the burial, we stood beneath a dying tree, family scattered, grief diluted by gossip. I handed Rohail an envelope. "No speeches," I said, "just read." She frowned first. He followed. Pages shook, color drained. Bank statements, transfer trails, surveillance stills, a signed affidavit from my grandmother's lawyer, dated before her death. She told me everything, I added, when she was still lucid. Rohail's mouth opened, closed. He looked at her like she'd changed species. "This isn't," she began. I raised a finger. Silence obeyed. "You said I was broke," I told her. finally meeting her eyes. I was, because I trusted. Her knees buckled, not theatrically. Truth doesn't need drama. I leaned in, voice low, almost kind. You didn't choose him because he was rich, I said. You chose him because you thought he was stupid. Rohail flinched harder than if I'd slapped him. I slid the last document forward, a resignation letter, her signature, pre-written, pre-dated. You'll sign it again tomorrow, publicly, I continued. You'll leave the company quietly. You'll keep the settlement I allow, and you'll never speak my name. She cried then, soft, broken. I felt nothing. I turned to Rohail. This ends clean if you let it. He nodded, not because he agreed, because he understood. Power isn't loud. That night I stood alone in my grandmother's house, empty rooms, heavy air. I didn't feel victorious. I felt finished. Betrayal doesn't scar you because it hurts. It scars you because it teaches you how replaceable you once were. I removed the ring from my pocket, the one I never gave anyone else, and dropped it into the river behind the house. It didn't splash. It vanished. Some losses don't echo. I walked away lighter, colder, exact. She chose wrong, not because I became rich, but because I stopped being hers.